Lyra woke to the soft hum of containment fields. The walls around her glowed faint blue, transparent but thick enough to distort sound. A tray sat near the door. Nutrient paste, sterilized water, no utensils. The Academy didn't intend comfort. They intended control. She stretched her hands, knuckles faintly cracking. Her reflection shimmered in the wall, same calm expression, same unreadable eyes. Nothing in her posture betrayed the fact she hadn't truly slept. The door opened with a hiss. 2 guards entered, armored in obsidian suits that reflected her outline like a mirrored void. Between them stood Commander Vera. "Time for analysis," Vera said flatly. Lyra rose without argument. They escorted her through a labyrinth of sterile corridors until they reached the biointelligence wing, a hall lined with cold instruments and floating scanners. A dozen alien scientists hovered around translucent consoles, their eyes blinking with artificial light. Vera gestured. "Place your hand on the neural plate," Lyra complied. The scanner flared, sending tendrils of light crawling up her arm. A synthetic voice spoke from above. "Subject exhibits 99.8% genetic match with Terran Homo sapiens baseline. Neural architecture. Unquantifiable variance. Emotional dampening detected. Combat reflex potential. Unmeasured." The lead scientist, a thin creature with an elongated cranium, leaned in. "Her cortical pattern is nonlinear. No resonance lag. Commander, she's processing our probes before they reach conscious threshold." Vera's gaze narrowed.
"Meaning?"
"She's anticipating them. Like she knows the question before we ask," Lyra spoke calmly. "Your system pings before it fires." "Easy to read?" The scientist recoiled slightly. "You can hear neural frequencies?" Lyra looked up at the hovering console. "No, I just listen better than you do." Vera dismissed the technicians with a wave. "Enough theatrics. Begin cognitive sequence." A cluster of probes descended from the ceiling, spinning around Lyra's head in synchronized motion. Images flooded the air, fragments of her past extracted by psionic force. Dust storms, collapsed towers, oceans boiling under radiation skies. The aliens watched in silence as the projection stabilized on a single image, a human city burning under orbital bombardment. Vera's voice softened. "Earth." Lyra's fingers curled slightly. "Once, who destroyed it?" Lyra's eyes met hers. "Everyone who thought they could own it." The probes flickered, losing signal. Vera frowned. "You interrupted the feed." "I remembered," Lyra said simply. "That was enough." The commander leaned closer, studying her expression. "Your restraint is almost admirable. But make no mistake, restraint won't protect you here." "Wasn't trying to." The technician beside them whispered, "Commander, the readings are destabilizing the psionic grid." Lyra smiled faintly. "That's not the grid. That's you." Before Vera could reply, the lights dimmed. Monitors cascaded with static, symbols flashing too fast to interpret. The system's voice faltered mid-sentence. "Containment, breach, protocol." Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The lights returned. The console rebooted. Lyra stood where she had been all along, calm and motionless. Vera exhaled slowly. "End the session." The scientists backed away, murmuring among themselves. As they led Lyra down the corridor, Vera walked beside her. "Was that deliberate?" Lyra didn't look at her. "If it were, you'd know." Vera's voice hardened. "You enjoy these games?" "No," Lyra said, "but I understand them." They reached the training atrium, a massive hall where cadets sparred under variable gravity fields. As Lyra entered, hundreds of eyes turned. Conversation stopped mid-word. Whispers rippled through the ranks. Human. Impossible. She broke the scanners. Threx, the towering Talaran cadet who had mocked her earlier, stepped forward. His scaled arms flexed under the weight of muscle, his eyes glinting with contempt. "Commander," he said, "if the rumors are true, perhaps this creature needs a practical assessment." Vera didn't stop him. "Proceed." Threx activated the arena field. The floor shimmered, gravity twisting to double strength. Lyra's boots dug slightly into the alloy as the pressure increased. "You'll beg before you black out," Threx sneered, stepping into a defensive stance. Lyra tilted her head. "You talk too much!" He lunged, claws slashing through the air. Lyra sidestepped, not fast, just precise. His strike missed by a fraction, momentum carrying him forward. Her hand brushed his wrist, and somehow he stumbled, crashing into the floor. The arena sensors spiked red. Threx roared, forcing himself up. "Cheap trick." "No," Lyra said quietly. "Human reflex," he charged again, activating his exosuit amplifiers. The gravity field fluctuated, then suddenly inverted. A ripple of distortion shot through the air, slamming every cadet to their knees. Lyra stood untouched. Vera's voice echoed across the chamber. "Deactivate the field." The technician panicked. "It's not responding. She's overriding the stabilizers." Lyra blinked once and the distortion faded. The light steadied. The room fell silent except for the heavy breathing of the cadets. She turned toward the commander. "You wanted to know what happened to Earth?" "We adapted to worse conditions before breakfast." Vera stared at her, unreadable. Then she gestured to the guards. "End this session. Now!" As the crowd dispersed, whispers thickened, some fearful, others reverent. "She didn't move," one cadet muttered. The gravity bent around her. Back in isolation, Lyra sat on her cot, staring at the ceiling. The walls hummed faintly, monitoring every movement. But she knew they were listening for something else. Hesitation, emotion, weakness. A voice crackled through the intercom. "You could have killed him." Lyra recognized Vera's tone. "If I wanted to, then why not? Because you're not my enemy yet." A pause. "The Senate will be sending observers. You've drawn too much attention." Attention was inevitable, Lyra said softly. "Fear follows recognition." Vera's voice cooled. "You think this is fear?" "I think you're wondering how many more of me there are." The line went dead. For the first time, Lyra allowed her composure to slip, just slightly. She rubbed the scar across her knuckles, the one that never healed right. The hum of the walls grew louder, as if the academy itself were holding its breath. In the observation room beyond, Vera reviewed the footage of the arena. The gravity distortion sequence replayed in slow motion. It wasn't power, not in the traditional sense. No energy emission, no external field control. The distortion had originated from Lyra's biofeedback pattern. "She didn't attack the system," the technician said quietly. "She synchronized with it." Vera leaned closer to the display. "Humans aren't supposed to do that. Humans aren't supposed to exist." The commander's eyes stayed on the screen. "And yet here she is." She shut off the projection. The hum of the mainframe lingered like a whisper. For the first time in her career, Commander Vera Zorath felt something she couldn't categorize, something she hadn't felt since her academy days. Unease. Back in her cell, Lyra finally closed her eyes. The distant storm of voices in the academy corridors faded into background static. Her pulse slowed. She wasn't planning rebellion, not yet. She was watching, memorizing, waiting for patterns, for cracks, for the first hint of truth behind their fear. Because fear was always the first sign of knowledge, and the galaxy, she knew, was about to remember what humans truly were. The chamber of inquiry shimmered with cold light. Rings of silver panels surrounded Lyra, each alive with holographic projections of alien faces, senators, strategists, and observers from half a dozen systems. Their eyes glowed in different colors, but the expression was the same across every visage: calculated fear. Commander Vera stood to her right, hands folded behind her back, expression neutral but gaze tense. "Subject Lyra Hale," the central hologram intoned, voice layered through translation software. "Our records confirm your genetic authenticity. You are the first living Terran specimen recorded since the Exodus event. The Council seeks clarity." Lyra met the projection's gaze. "I'm not a specimen, and I didn't come here to give clarity." Murmurs rippled through the council ring. Vera's jaw tightened. The projection continued. "Then why present yourself at the Orion Legion Academy under false classification?" "Because I wanted to learn what the galaxy became after it buried my people," Lyra replied evenly. Looks like I found my answer. A senator with copper skin leaned forward. The records describe humanity as aggressive, irrational, and unfit for integration. You stand here only because the council voted to preserve your life for study. Cooperate, and your survival is guaranteed. Lyra smiled faintly. You threaten extinction to the last survivor of an extinct race. You see the irony, right? A silence followed. The alien faces blinked in discordant rhythm. Vera finally spoke. Permission to address the council. Granted, said the central projection. Vera stepped forward. Cadet Hale? Lyra interrupted softly. You can drop the rank, Commander. I doubt they'll keep me enrolled. Vera ignored it. Has shown restraint and discipline. Whatever her origin, she is capable of reason. Perhaps we should treat her as an intelligent entity rather than a containment threat. The copper-skinned senator's tone sharpened. Your sympathy is noted, Commander. But humanity's existence is classified for a reason. The Terran genome once destabilized entire regions of space with adaptive warfare. This cannot be allowed to resurface. Lyra's eyes met his across the light. So the truth isn't that you fear war. It's that you fear competition. The senator's projection flickered. You are out of order. Order, Lyra said quietly, is what you built after you erased us. The tension in the room thickened until the static hum of the holograms began to distort. The chair of the council, an elder with luminous eyes, spoke. We offer you a compromise. Publicly, you will be presented as a rediscovered genetic offshoot of unknown colony stock, a symbol of unity and rehabilitation. In exchange, you will serve under Senate supervision, aiding our research into adaptive physiology. Lyra's tone didn't shift. You want to cage me but make it look like mercy. Vera shot her a warning glance. Lyra, no, Lyra continued. You need me alive because you're afraid someone else might find me first. If the colonies learn humanity still exists, they'll start asking questions you've spent centuries burying. The elder's tone chilled. And what would you propose then? Freedom? Independence? You would ignite panic across 3 sectors. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. Panic comes from ignorance. You built that ignorance. A long silence followed. The central hologram dimmed for several seconds before returning. You will have time to consider our offer. Defiance, however, will not end favorably. The lights faded. One by one, the holograms disappeared, leaving only Vera and the hum of the projection arrays. Lyra exhaled softly. They speak of peace like it's a leash. Vera turned toward her. You don't understand what they're capable of. Defying them means annihilation. Lyra's expression remained calm. Funny, that's what they said last time. The commander's tone hardened. You're not the Terran military, Hale. You're one person, alone. Lyra looked at her, unblinking. So was the first person who learned to make fire. Vera's composure faltered for an instant, just enough for Lyra to see the doubt behind her eyes. Later, back in her containment suite, Lyra found a data slate resting on the desk, unmarked, untraceable, but waiting for her fingerprint. She pressed her thumb to the sensor, and a single encrypted file unfolded. Project Terra. Classified Addendum Origin, Galactic Senate Research Division. Objective, monitor for surviving human genomes post-Exodus. Controlled reintroduction experiment approved for analysis of adaptability vectors. Target placement, Orion Academy. Status, active. Subject unaware of role. Lyra's eyes narrowed. The message didn't end there. A final line blinked in fading light. Handler assigned, Commander Vera Zorath. She sat back slowly, the realization settling in like cold iron. They hadn't found her by accident. They had invited her. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. Vera entered, expression composed but guarded. We need to talk. Lyra's voice was low. You already have my file, Commander. Not everything in it, Vera replied. I know about the Project Terra directive. Before you accuse me, I was ordered to oversee it. I didn't design it. Orders make good excuses, Lyra said. I followed them because I thought I was preventing war. Lyra turned toward her. And now? Vera hesitated. Now I'm not sure which side I'm on. Lyra stood, studying her closely. You're starting to sound human. The commander didn't answer. Her gaze flicked to the walls. You're being monitored. Don't trust anything with power cables. I don't. Vera stepped closer, lowering her voice. They're planning to relocate you to the Citadel next rotation. Once you're there, you won't walk out again. Lyra crossed her arms. Then I'll have to leave before they move me. Escape from this station is impossible. Lyra gave a small, unreadable smile. You said the same about gravity fields. Vera's jaw tightened. You're going to get both of us killed. Maybe, Lyra said softly. But at least we'll die knowing what's real. Vera turned sharply to the door. If you intend to move, do it soon. The Senate won't wait for another debate. When she was gone, Lyra sat in the silence again. Her reflection in the alloy wall looked almost alien now, the human outline surrounded by cold technology that didn't belong to her kind. She thought of the cities in her memory, the ones she'd seen burn from orbit, towers collapsing in light, oceans turned to ash. Humanity had vanished, yes, but vanishing wasn't dying. She pulled the data slate apart with a flick of her fingers, rewiring its circuits manually. The system resisted, but she forced it to link with the Academy's internal network. Streams of encrypted code scrolled across the display, lines of data, training rosters, ship registries, defense coordinates, and hidden deep beneath the public protocols, a dormant access signal labeled Terra Link, Earth Relay Channel. Her heart rate didn't change. Her breathing stayed even. But inside, she felt the quiet pulse of recognition. Still alive, she whispered. The relay responded with a single blinking cursor. Then text appeared, signal acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Lyra stared at the message for a long moment. Outside her cell, the Academy carried on. Drills, commands, silence between stars. But the air itself felt different now, charged with possibility. She typed 2 words, "Stand by." Then she cut the connection. In the control room across the facility, alarms briefly flickered before returning to normal. Technicians dismissed it as static. Only Vera noticed the anomaly in the data feed. She stared at the monitor showing Lyra sitting alone, eyes closed. "What did you do?" she whispered under her breath. Lyra didn't move, but the faintest hint of a smile crossed her face. The orbital dawn over Eidolon Prime burned cold and white. From the upper decks of the Orion Academy, the view stretched across the planet's ocean of clouds. Serene, almost holy. But beneath that calm shimmered tension so sharp it felt alive. Inside the combat arena, technicians whispered hurriedly. Commanders double-checked field stabilizers. The Senate's order had arrived that morning. Demonstrate the human's capability, or end the experiment. Commander Vera stood by the central console, jaw rigid, voice clipped as she gave orders. No lethal rounds. Calibrate the gravity fields manually. If the Council wants a spectacle, they'll have one, not a massacre. A junior officer hesitated. Commander, they insisted on full power cycles. Anything less? Follow my command, she snapped. Lyra stood at the far end of the chamber. Her uniform was the same black as every cadet's, yet on her it looked different, like armor worn by someone who didn't need it. She didn't flinch under the lights, didn't blink as the Senate's observers took their seats above the glass dome. The intercom crackled to life. Cadet Lyra Hale, you are ordered to demonstrate adaptive response against simulated combat pressure. Failure to comply will be recorded as confirmation of species instability. Lyra exhaled through her nose. You mean you want me to fight until I break? The voice ignored her. Begin. The arena came alive, 1,000 projectors bending light into solid form. Holographic drones materialized, armored and armed, their plasma rifles locking onto her heat signature. The first wave opened fire. Lyra moved, not fast, not frantic, just right. Each shot curved past her by inches, drawn aside by some invisible current. The crowd gasped. Her hand brushed the air, and a drone shattered into shards of blue light. Another exploded mid-flight, collapsing before it reached her. "Commander!" a technician stammered. "The simulation is destabilizing. She's overriding the feedback loops." Vera's voice cut through the noise. "Shut it down!" The system refused. The entire chamber trembled. gravity pulsing in erratic waves. Energy surged across the dome. Lyra stood at the center of it all, unshaken, her voice low. You wanted to see what adaptation looks like? Watch closely. The drones froze midair. One by one, their forms melted into flickering static before vanishing. The arena went silent except for the hum of power bleeding through the conduits. Then came the second voice, calm, synthetic, and far older than any in the room. Signal recognized. Origin protocol active. The lights dimmed. The Senate observers looked at one another in alarm. Data screens flashed unreadable Terran code. Lyra tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing. You heard that too? Vera's voice was a whisper. What did you do? Nothing. I just stopped pretending. From orbit, satellites that hadn't transmitted in centuries awoke, one after another. Ancient Terran defense stations buried in silence since the Exodus War. Their sensors aligned, targeting Eidolon's orbit. Within minutes, the Council's warships reported ghost signals around the planet. Unknown encryption. Human origin. In the chamber, alarms blared. The Senate transmission came through, panicked and distorted. Commander Zorath, contain the human immediately. Cut the link! Lyra looked up toward the observation dome. You called this a demonstration, she said softly. Then let's make it honest. The energy field around her flared bright white. The floor panels cracked under the strain. Gravity folded inward, not collapsing, but listening. The force obeyed her pulse. Stop! Vera shouted, stepping forward. You'll kill everyone in this wing. Lyra's eyes flicked toward her. Then tell them to stop pointing guns at me. The guards hesitated. Vera raised a hand. All units, stand down! Silence returned, heavy and trembling. The air shimmered with displaced energy, like the calm after a storm that hadn't yet passed. Lyra's voice lowered. You tried to bury Earth. You called us extinct. But extinction isn't the same as silence. On the main display, an image flickered to life, the Terran insignia, a fractured circle surrounding a single star. Beneath it, text scrolled across every terminal in the Academy. Terra acknowledges signal, awaiting orders. The Senate's emergency frequency lit up the command feed. Zorath, terminate her now. That's an ancient war code network. If it activates, Lyra's tone cut through the noise. If it activates, you'll remember why you left us alone. The floor cracked as the containment field burst, glass shattering across the chamber. Energy washed outward like a tidal wave, but it didn't destroy. It reshaped. Systems realigned, fuses reset, lights stabilized. Every malfunction corrected itself under her influence. Vera took a step forward. You're controlling the infrastructure? No, Lyra said. It remembers us. That's the difference. For the first time, fear and awe shared the same space. The command deck doors burst open. Senate guards rushed in, weapons charged. Lyra turned toward them. No expression, no hostility, only calm certainty. Don't, Vera ordered, voice sharp. She's not your enemy! They disagree, Lyra murmured. A shot fired, bright blue plasma cutting through the haze. It stopped inches from her chest, frozen midair. Lyra reached up, tapped the glowing bolt, and it fell to the floor like glass. Vera stared. You're rewriting physics. Just borrowing it, Lyra said quietly. Humans always did like bending rules. The emergency alarm ceased. Across the Academy, systems fell into a strange, synchronized quiet. Every console displayed the same pulse, Terra Online. Lyra turned toward Vera, her expression softening for the first time. They'll come after both of us now. Vera hesitated. Where will you go? Home, Lyra said. There is no home left, Vera replied. Lyra smiled faintly. Then we'll build it again. Above Eidolon Prime, the dormant Terran satellites aligned into formation, not weapons, but transmitters. They began to broadcast across deep space, through systems long abandoned, through dust and silence. Every world that had once fought beside humanity heard the signal. Every suppressed colony, every forbidden archive lit up with the same phrase, Earth remembers. Vera looked at the screens, her voice barely audible. They'll send fleets. Lyra's eyes stayed on the horizon. Let them. Peace was never meant to be fear in disguise. Then what is it? Choice. She turned to face her. No arrogance, no defiance, just conviction. That's what they'll never understand. You can't program peace. You have to choose it. The sirens began again, but this time the sound was distant. Ships were launching, engines roaring, orders shouted through the comms. The academy was no longer a school. It was the first battlefield of the next awakening. Vera stepped closer. If I help you, if I stand against them, what happens to me? Lyra's answer came without hesitation. You stop being their weapon. The commander exhaled, then nodded once. Then I suppose I've already started. Outside the dome, streaks of light crossed the sky. Orbital re-entry trails from the old Terran satellites descending like falling stars. The observers watching from orbit saw only chaos, but to Lyra it was something else entirely. Recognition. She looked up, whispered a phrase the translator couldn't catch. A word in a language long erased from galactic memory. Human. The ground trembled once more, then stilled. Every system went dark for 3 seconds. When they came back online, all command access had been rerouted through a single encryption key. Lyra, hail, root. Vera's voice broke the silence. They'll call this an act of war, Lyra nodded. Then let them call it what it is. A reminder. The glass ceiling of the dome cracked from the pressure, letting in the raw light of the twin suns. Lyra stood beneath it, wind rushing through the breach, her hair whipping against the brilliance. She looked at Vera one last time. Tell your Senate. The ghosts they buried learned how to breathe in the dark. Then she stepped forward into the light, vanishing as the energy flared. Above Eidolon Prime, the old Terran fleet powered up. Silent, immense, waiting, and across the galaxy, the message repeated, calm, relentless, undeniable. Tell them Earth remembers. The transport shuttle trembled as it breached Eidolon Prime's atmosphere, its metal hull streaked with plasma fire. Beyond the viewing glass, the Orion Legion Academy rose from the planet's horizon like a city carved from light. Towers of silver glass and blue flame suspended over a vast ocean of clouds. To every cadet aboard, it was sacred ground. To Lyra Hale, it was the beginning of her test. She sat silently near the back, her boots grounded, hands steady on her knees. Around her, recruits of a dozen species whispered and laughed in bursts of dialects, melodic, insectoid, or mechanical. She said nothing. Which colony are you from? A scaled cadet hissed from the next seat, his mandibles twitching. Delta origin. Never heard of it. Lyra's eyes didn't move from the window. Not many have, he smirked. Probably some dirt rock with gravity barely worth walking in. Another cadet chuckled, tapping his wrist pad. Look at her. Fragile bone density. No crest, no visible bioluminescence, no neural port. You sure you passed med screening, human? Lyra turned her head very slightly. Cadet, the word human isn't on my file. The laughter deepened. When the shuttle docked, the cadets filed out into a towering concourse bathed in artificial sunlight. Drones hummed overhead, scanning each new arrival. The air smelled of sterilized ozone and metal polish. Massive banners floated, each bearing the Orion sigil, a star wreathed in wings, symbol of unity under control. Commander Vera Zorath stood on the platform ahead, her uniform an immaculate line of black and silver. Her pale, veined skin gleamed under the lights, and her voice carried like glass scraping against steel. Welcome to Orion Academy. You are not students. You are raw matter. We will determine which of you can be forged into legionnaires, and which will be recycled into the next generation's fertilizer. The cadets stiffened. Lyra didn't blink. They marched toward the biometric hall, a cathedral of scanners, neural probes, and glowing holographic matrices. The ceiling arched high, filled with the thrum of active machinery. Cadets stepped into spherical pods that analyzed every strand of their DNA and neural signatures. Lyra waited her turn in silence, watching as others emerged with their classifications displayed in bright glyphs. Talaran Gen Class B+, Aurelian Mind Tier, Dravik Combat Strain. Every name was greeted with cheers or groans, competition humming through the air. When her name appeared on the queue, The room quieted slightly. Lyra Hale. Colony, Delta Origin. Classification, pending. Commander Vera glanced at the display, her lips curving faintly. Delta Origin. The Council doesn't list such a colony. Lyra stepped into the pod without answering. The scanner sealed around her, blue light tracing over her skin, through her bones. It was supposed to take 7 seconds. It froze at 3, a warning tone echoed. Then another. The console flickered, cycling through hundreds of encryption locks before the main display blinked once. And every light in the hall dimmed. The result appeared in bold red letters. Origin. Earth. The silence was instantaneous, a void that devoured sound. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then cadets started whispering, "Earth? That's not possible." Extinct. Classified species. Vera's pupils contracted to slits. "Run it again," the technician hesitated. "Commander, the system cross-checked against every known database. There's no error. Genetic baseline matches pre-Exodus Terran profile. 100%. Lyra stepped out of the pod as the glass doors hissed open. She looked at the display, then at the crowd of wide-eyed cadets. "Seems your scanner needs an update," she said quietly. Vera's expression hardened. "You will remain silent until spoken to." Lyra tilted her head slightly. Noted. Guards moved in. The room erupted in whispers, some fearful, others excited. A few cadets instinctively stepped back, as if proximity alone carried contamination. Humanity was a myth, the species that defied galactic law, waged wars alone, then vanished behind radiation storms and silence. Lyra walked between the guards, her pace unhurried, her gaze forward. They escorted her into a containment suite lined with transparent alloy. The air inside shimmered faintly with containment fields. Vera entered moments later, flanked by 2 officers. "Explain," Vera said, voice calm but brittle. "How does a human walk into my academy?" Lyra studied the alien's silver-veined hands folded behind her back. "Walked in the same way everyone else did. Shuttle checkpoint intake. The system didn't object until it learned what I am. What you claim to be." "I didn't claim anything," Lyra said evenly. "Your scanner did." One of the officers leaned forward. "The Terran strain is extinct. The last human biosignal was recorded 3 centuries ago on Mars Theta before the solar quarantine." "You shouldn't exist." Lyra's eyes flicked to him. "I get that a lot." The air grew heavier. Vera gestured, and the room's holoscreen activated, displaying historical footage. Archival images of Earth's wars, the final evacuation fleets, the last human transmission. "We will adapt." "Do you understand?" Vera said softly. "What this means? The political consequences? The instability your existence represents?" Lyra didn't answer. "Humanity nearly destroyed half the galaxy in its final conflict," the commander continued. "Your kind refused integration. The Senate sealed your records for a reason." Lyra looked through the glass wall where other cadets stood outside, gawking. "Funny. You erased us from history but still teach our wars in your classes." Vera stepped closer. "You will submit to medical analysis. Every cell, every neuron, every synapse will be mapped. Refusal is not an option." Lyra's gaze met hers. "I didn't come here to refuse." "Then why are you here?" "To learn," Lyra said. "Same as everyone else, but it seems my lessons start earlier than theirs." Vera studied her for several seconds, then motioned for the guards. "Isolate her." Full observation. No external contact. As the commander turned to leave, Lyra spoke softly. "Commander." Vera stopped. Lyra's tone remained calm, measured, almost detached. "You said humanity nearly destroyed half the galaxy. You might want to check your archives again." Vera's voice turned cold. "Why?" "Because the other half joined us." For a moment, the alien's expression faltered, a flash of uncertainty breaking through centuries of doctrine. Then she left without another word. When the door sealed, Lyra exhaled quietly. Her pulse was steady. The scanners in the ceiling hummed softly, tracing invisible grids across her body. Outside, the rumor spread like wildfire through the academy. A human had arrived. In the cadet barracks, Threx, the top-ranked Talaran student, watched the report with a grin. Extinct species or not, if she thinks she can stand in my ring, she'll learn what evolution means. In the observation chamber, Vera stood before the holoconsole, watching Lyra sit motionless inside her cell. She zoomed in on the girl's expression, calm, detached, unreadable. She's not reacting to confinement, one of the aides noted. No elevated heart rate, no stress markers. Vera's voice was almost a whisper. That's what frightens me. Inside the isolation field, Lyra opened her eyes. The faintest glimmer of reflected blue light passed over her irises. For a brief instant, the monitors flickered. She reached up, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and smiled faintly. Still watching? She murmured. The sensors crackled, momentary static across every feed. Outside, Vera straightened sharply. What was that? The aide shook his head. Interference. Possibly from the containment field. Containment doesn't glitch. Vera's gaze remained fixed on the human girl who sat quietly beneath the scanner's glow, as if she had never moved at all. Lyra closed her eyes once more. Then Mercy died first, she whispered, barely audible. But the system recorded it, and somewhere deep within the Academy's mainframe, a dormant subroutine flickered awake. The file name glowed faintly in red letters, Project Terra.